Welcome to episode 20 of the Nintendo Newscast. This week's guest is TJ Sankula. Introducing your host, Amiibo Jason.
Good evening, Nintendo fans. How's it going? We are back yet again for another fantastic episode of the Nintendo Newscast. I am your host, as always, Amiibo Jason, and you might notice again, there's no Happily Candied here, but we do have a replacement, a replacement Happily Candied, even though you cannot replace her. It's near impossible to replace her. She'll be probably popping in chat at some point this evening. So expect to see her there. We also have some other Nintendo Wire members in chat tonight, so if you're curious, you can find them there. But without further ado, why don't we take a look at our co-host? You might recognize him from last week, from the amazing content he puts up on the Nintendo Wire channel on a weekly basis. TJ, how the heck you doing? Welcome back to another fantastic Nintendo News Day.
Oh, it is a fantastic news day, and I'm very happy to be here.
So, what have you been up to in the week since we have spoken last? Because we had a nice little newscast hiatus, if you want to call it like a nice little hiatus, but we were gone for a bit, and a lot of it had to do with the move that we had and just the massive amount of stuff that we've had to do since the Nintendo Switch launched. But we're back. You are back for 2 weeks in a row, and I'm planning on having you back even more than that. But what have you been up to in the past week? Any fun Nintendo news? Any new custom like stories that you'd like to share with us before we get into this?
Yeah, actually, I've been reviving a show that hasn't come out for a while that you may have heard of by the name of Smash Supremacy. And
Mother of God.
I know. Can you believe it? Now that Cloud Corn and Bayonetta finally have a release date, it is now possible for me to conclude that tournament, which I've been working on forever. I fervently believe that there's about 10 people in the world who even care, but I'm one of those people who are a finisher, and I want to see it through to the end. But what's unique and exciting about this next episode is that it is the first one that I didn't write. It's written by a Mr. Ricky Berg, and he's the guest host in the episode. So it was really fun for me to be able to see how another person writes and interprets the characters, and he did a phenomenal job. The episode's just about done, so it'll probably go up tomorrow, and I'm really excited for everyone to see it.
Man, Ricky has his hands in so many things right now. I didn't know he wrote it. I knew he was in it, but so what was that like? What was that like having like Dark TJ's lines and your lines written by somebody else?
It was really strange, but what a lot of people don't realize is the production schedule for the show is pretty strange anyway, because since guests are all over the world, I basically have them provide their responses before the script is even in existence, and then the script is crafted around what they say. So a lot of the time, the guests aren't even aware about how I'm misappropriating their speech or their responses until they see the episode. So in this case, Ricky's kind of the only person who has a general idea of what the episode structure is before it comes out. And for me, it was really funny to read lines like from Dark TJ and from TJ that I could have written. Like they're characters that I could have written them, and I feel like that's a testament to Ricky's ability to write. And it was fun to be able to see those characters come to life from a purely performance standpoint and to not be inventing it. So it was cool.
For people who are unfamiliar with Smash Supremacy, if you could give them a 1 minute kind of breakdown of what this is, because I first encountered you because of Smash Supremacy. I was sitting in LA during E3 2015 with Jason Greer and Josh Brown from the Toys for Games cast. And they said, there's this dude named TJ who wants to get a hold of you to be on the show. And they showed me a clip. And apparently you were trying to get a hold of me for a bit. And I just big timed you, which I tend to do.
Totally big timed me.
And I saw a clip of it, and I was like 30 seconds in, and I'm like, get this guy now. Like, I want to be on this show. But if you could give people like a quick breakdown of what the show is, I think there might be some people that have never seen it.
Sure. What Smash Brothers does is it combines my favorite things in the world, fighting and Nintendo. And I was at the time involved in a live action tournament. And so I thought it would be really fun to be able to take this tournament idea and combine it with Smash Brothers by having all of the characters determine who is the greatest Smash fighter by subtracting the human element and using Amiibo, which is actually what got me into Amiibo. And collecting the Smash figures and having them fight up against each other in completely Amiibo generated fights to see which one has the strongest battle potential, it had a lot of appeal to me. And I thought it would be cool if I could incorporate people who were as passionate as me. And so I just started asking people who are involved in the Nintendo community or in the video games community. And it wound up being a good way to kind of break it up because TJ and Dark TJ each have their own idea about who they think is going to win. And it's nice to have a third voice to kind of tip the scales in one direction. And so we're now mostly through round 2, but there are still 2 incomplete episodes from round 1 because I'm waiting on those final DLC characters. So if you haven't seen it, it's all available here on Nintendo Wire. Just binge watch it from the beginning all the way through. It's a fun show, I think. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And if you're the kind of person who can tolerate long bits of Dark TJ, and I know that there's not a lot of people out there who can, then this show might be for you.
So I'm going to do something that I haven't told you about yet, but on the screen real quick, I'm going to show you a small clip of what essentially turned into Smash Supremacy. And this is live action, like a fight sequence that TJ did with his alter ego. And I remember seeing this. I remember seeing this for the first time and just thinking, how is this possible? How is it possible that this guy has edited something together so brilliant? So I'm gonna let this speak for itself for just a few seconds here. I'm gonna actually turn it down just a smidge. But what went into like the choreography of this? Like, it's absolutely insane. Like the choreography that looks like at least that went into this.
Well, thanks. What I like about this is it is a shot-by-shot recreation of the fight from the E3 launch of Amiibo and Smash Brothers that featured President Iwata and Reggie. And I wanted to recreate that to kind of give people some idea about what the show was going to be about. And I thought that I would start off with something live action to introduce the characters of Hero TJ and Dark TJ and then transition into Amiibo. And it was something I wanted to do to challenge myself creatively, because I am fighting with myself. Obviously, I couldn't do that at the same time. So it was a matter of performing each half of the choreography separately and then combining it. This wasn't my first time doing it. I had experimented with it for another project earlier and refined it a little bit, worked out some kinks, saw what worked for me. Probably the most challenging thing about it was the confined space that I was working in. Really, really late at night, I just said, to my dad, who was in town, he was about to leave. I said, hey, can you just like roll that camera on me for a few minutes? I want to try some stuff. And because I can't go back and forth, I did everything that TJ does and then everything that Dark TJ does, and hoped that when I put it into post-production that it was going to align. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It was fun to do.
So how much space did you have for this? Because it looks like you're like in a warehouse.
I had about 10 feet wide and 0 feet between me and the camera. So I couldn't step towards the green screen or away from the green screen. Otherwise, I'd leave my focus, and we couldn't be doing any kind of complex racking for this. So I had to stay in one line, and I could only move forward and back. And some of the flips that you see there are practical flips, even though I have heavy effects on them, and I'm really performing like back handsprings and back flips. And it was hard to do in that space, and I kept crawling off the green screen quite a bit, so I had to mask some of that out after the fact, but it was fun.
Impressive. Incredibly impressive.
Thank you.
So I'm heading over to LA for E3. You're out in LA. So what you're saying is we get to recreate this with me.
We're
going
to redo it. We're going to do the sword.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I can hit. I think I could do the flips a little better than you could, to be honest.
I believe you can. I've seen some pretty amazing feats done by the amazing and majestic Amiibo Jason.
Yep, I fell down some stairs recently. That was fun. That was majestic. It was very smooth. I rode down on my butt the entire time, so it was very majestic. So thank you for pointing that out.
Well, as everyone knows, it's not about the falling. It's about the getting back up.
Thank you. So, without further ado, let's get into some of our Nintendo news. One thing that happened that we had no time to talk about in the last newscast that I wanted to spend some time today talking about is the new 2DS XL. So the new 2DS XL is announced. It was something I don't think anybody was expecting. And it was something that a lot of people joked about in the past, that Nintendo was going to come up with like this rehashed version of the 2DS. Some people were, joking like when is the 1DS coming out, something like that. But I'm curious to see your opinion on the 2DS. Do you use the 3D on the 3DS? I feel like I might be one of the only people left on the planet that uses 3D. I think for certain games it looks amazing. So I'm curious to know, now that they've announced this, is this their way of saying the 3DS is done? We are, moving away from the 3D effect. We want people to focus on 2 dimensions for the Switch and this. Or do you think this is just another option for people to have?
That's a good question. I have thought about a lot of those things. I think it could mean the end of the 3D in terms of the production, but I think we're still going to see the 3DS around. Nintendo made a really great point when they were getting, and people are still saying, why is Nintendo pretending that they're going to continue to support the 3DS now that the Switch is out and the Switch is a portable device? I have the perfect answer for that, and Nintendo has already said this as much themselves, and that is that who is going to buy their 5-year-old kid a Switch? I wouldn't, but I have bought my 5-year-old kid, I bought my 3-year-old kid a 2DS, the flat one, and this product is perfect for me because I have another kid now. One of my kids is going to turn 5. I'm going to buy her this one, and then I'm going to pass her 2DS down to my 3-year-old. So it does have a place in my life. I'm definitely going to buy it. I don't know that it works for everybody, but what it really has going for it is that it's a little bit more durable, and it's a budget buy compared to the Switch, and it has a catalog of games that you could never play through in a lifetime. And those are big things. So to be able to instantly on day one have the most robust catalog of titles you could possibly imagine between both physical and the virtual console.
Yeah.
It's hard for Nintendo to turn their back on such a massive install base. And so to continue to support it just makes good financial sense, good business sense, and the audience is still there.
I think this is the design people have wanted for a while. It has much more screen real estate at the top now that they've moved the speakers to like the bar on the bottom. Not on the bottom, like kind of on the hinge, I guess I should say. It's definitely probably their best looking handheld that they've put out this generation for at least the 3DS. So I'm excited for it. But at the same time too, I feel like I have to mourn it a bit. I remember the day they announced the 3DS and they showed off the trailer of, they had Miyamoto and they had Reggie and they were, messing with the slider, and like puppies were coming out of the screen like from Nintendogs, and Bowser shot out of the screen at one point. The 3D was something that just took me by storm. It was something nobody else was doing. And at the time, people were saying, this is crazy. This is insane. Nobody is going to want this. And I guess history has kind of proven that not a lot of people used the 3D, but at the same time, I still love it. Oh, I think we lost TJ. I think I bored him to death with talking about how much I like 3D. So we're going to see if we can get him back here real quick.
You kicking me off already?
I did. I felt like you didn't agree with me on how I feel about the 3DS.
I don't agree with you, but it comes from a purely personal standpoint. You and Lauren and the rest of the Nintendo Wire team were with me at Universal Studios, where I could not handle even one of those motion attractions, and it's because there is something defective in my makeup when I'm being swirled around or whirled around like that. Yeah, I am completely disoriented. My body cannot handle it. I'm on the verge of losing whatever's in my stomach. And I do get minor notes of that from the 3D on the 3DS. I have to admit, the slider does help. So there were times where I was playing games where the 3D is useful in determining your relationship to your environment, like A Link Between Worlds. There were some puzzles that were a little bit difficult to solve if you were purely in 2D. So if I put the slider halfway up, I would play through that and then solve that puzzle. And I will also give Nintendo some serious credit with the new 3DS, because that is far vastly improved.
I think so too.
The original in like 2 seconds. The original one, like if it even remotely tipped sideways, I was migraines, like full on migraine. But the new one, it has some considerable play, and I was able to use it, but I couldn't keep it on. So I'm one of those people who I can't handle the full blast. I do like it. I think it's a neat thing. I like that there are not glasses. I just wish I didn't have that personal defect to allow me to use it more. So I don't know how many people are in this similar situation to me. I know I'm not the only person affected by motion sickness, but I do feel like what it contributes to the games is not enough to justify the cost that it takes to put it into the unit, and they could probably push more units by cheapening, by just subtracting that feature. Pokemon Sun and Moon proved that people are going to buy the games anyway. Would it have been nice to have some 3D in there? I think some people would have liked it, but those same people who would have liked it are not going to not buy it because it doesn't have the 3D aspects in it.
And I know some people mentioned that they were leasing the technology for the 3D, so they didn't own it. It wasn't something they patented. So they're saying that that's, one less thing that they have to pay out on this thing too. So it raises their profit margin even a little bit there too. However, I think the big thing that for me with 3D, when I had the standard 3DS, it was pretty simple. Yes, if you moved it, it kind of gave me a headache. But when I moved over to the 3DS XL, I had to turn it off almost completely because I felt with the bigger screens, it just made it more difficult to use. And then I got the new 3DS, the standard one, and that was the sweet spot for me. Everything just looked great. I absolutely loved the 3D in it. Like I said, there's a handful of titles that it blew my mind. The most recent is Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World. The 3D is perfect. It's subtle. It has the perfect sense of depth in it. Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D was outstanding too. So there's really good uses of it, but at the same time too, I understand why they're getting rid of it. Like I said, I just feel like a sense of loss to a certain level that, this is the path we're going down. But it is what it is. Nintendo has other focuses at this point other than glasses-free 3D. I mean, I think they took 3D technology out of TVs completely too. I don't think you can buy a new 3D TV like at a Best Buy anymore. Everything is just like 4K and that's it. So 3D had its time in the sun, I guess.
Yeah, as far as a fad goes, I think it's played itself out. That's not to say that it can't contribute to the experience in some way, but I think it'll be more of like a special event type scenario for movies than every movie getting adapted into 3D.
That's what killed it. That's what killed it. Like everybody is like, okay, we need to hire a firm to convert this movie that we shot in standard traditional 2D and just, make it 3D and stuff like that. It just cheapened the technology. I think James Cameron is probably pretty upset about that.
Right. I do think, though, that with Nintendo's push to keep the 3DS, 2DS family of systems relevant and by continuing to support it with games, they're still missing one big thing, and I think it's because they don't know how to solve it yet.
Yeah.
But that is being able to transfer games from one system to the other. When you have the 3DS, and it will come up soon with the Switch, where you have multiple units, but the game is pre-installed if you have the downloaded version on one unit, and you can't switch it from unit to unit. Obviously, you don't have that problem if you have the physical copy, but part of the appeal of the 2DS is that I can give it to a kid. I can't give those little cartridges to a kid. So every game, you mentioned Yoshi's Woolly World. I bought Yoshi's Woolly World, but I installed it on my daughter's 2DS, so I've never actually seen the 3D on the game. It would be really great if there was a way how she could play the game that I bought, and I could also play the game that I bought, not simultaneously, just like how you would if you had a physical cartridge that you were transferring from game to game. But there isn't really a very there's no good way to do it. It takes like 5 days to transfer a game, and you have to call Nintendo to do it. That needs to get simpler in some way. And I need to be able to do it myself. Netflix figured it out. You can only have X number of people logged in at a time. I think Nintendo needs to kind of move into that territory.
So a unified account system.
A unified account system.
It's something that people have been wanting for so long. It doesn't make any sense that we're not quite there yet. PlayStation does it well. They have a unified account system for the PS Vita, which nobody has, I feel like, except for me. The PS3 and the PS4. So all of the games that I purchased, like I have like Final Fantasy VII, that I can download on my Vita, that I can download on my PS3, and I think I can download it on the PS4. I'm almost positive. But it's easy. It's pretty simple. Like the process is pretty seamless. So Nintendo, I think, has a lot of work to do from an infrastructure standpoint, and I'm hoping we see something like that soon. E3 could be the time that Nintendo announces this. We've talked about like a Netflix like style model for like your digital library for a long time on the newscast. I feel like at this point, like for 2 years, we've discussed this on either the Amiibo newscast or the Nintendo newscast, and I don't think we're any closer to getting that. I think Nintendo knows that their diehard fans buy lots of systems. How many 3DSs do you have? Do you obviously in your household right now?
I have a lot. When Four Swords came out, I bought 4 of the SPs so that I can play that game because nobody has them. At the time that game came out, I was already an adult man. So none of my peers had this. So if I wanted friends to come over, I needed to be able to supply the cords and all the other things. And that game had a huge barrier of entry. And pretty much I've been maintaining a pattern of if it has a Zelda logo on it, I bought it. I'm embarrassed that I couldn't resist buying the this one right here. Because I was one of those people who was extremely disappointed in my Majora's Mask 3DS. New 3DS got canceled by Best Buy. I cried for 4 days in my pillow. And,
I don't doubt that.
And I called my mom and begged her to wait outside a store in the Midwest far away from me. And she did, and she got one of the 2 that they had. Yeah, that one. So I do have it. But I was so happy with that system. I love it so much, and I love Majora's Mask, that this one came out, and I'm like, I don't need it. It has no place in my life. But one day, you know, a little bit of retail therapy, it happened. Nintendo Wire posted this link. It went back up in stock, and I'm like, click, and I bought it. So now I have 2, and I don't need 2. I can't play 2, and because I'm a digital-only kind of guy, one of them I can't play anyway because it has no games on it.
I actually sold my Hyrule Edition 3DS XL, which it pains me to say that, but I have way too many. This is one I don't think anybody has actually seen. This is the best 3DS we have. This is the standard red 3DS, but it is modified for like not HDMI out, USB out, so we can stream our games. But I have far too many 3DS consoles, and I had to come to a point where I'm like, these things are going to drop in value at some point soon. I have to get rid of at least one. So that's the one I got rid of. I feel like the Majora's Mask is kind of the definitive 3DS. So more power to you, though. I mean, you are one of the biggest Zelda fanatics I've ever met. I thought it was bad for me, so get more power to you.
And Nintendo's going to rope me in with this 2DS too. But like I said, it's good timing for my family. Like it's not like I'm buying an unnecessary one. I'm buying one that's going to be able to be put to use right away. And the cool thing about the 2DS is everyone can play their own independently simultaneously. So it is worth it to have more than one if you can reconcile the transfer of games issue with young kids. And I'm still curious to see how that's going to be, because right now what I'm going to have to do is once the new one comes out, I'll buy the newer games and put them on that one for my daughter and take the games that she's already completed or grown out of and leave them on the other one, but transfer the ones she's still playing onto the new one. It's too complicated. Help me, Nintendo. Help me do this. I want to buy your stuff and I want to support it, but I'm not going to buy double of each one and put it on both systems. And that's why you got to go physical. Except I know my kids, and if it were me, I would probably go the physical route. But because I have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old who just beat Smash all on her own.
I saw that.
Oh my!
I saw that. That's impressive.
In the world. I can't believe it.
That's how I felt when my 4-year-old beat Mario Kart with a gold trophy.
Oh yeah.
If you're not a parent, it's hard to like describe the stupid pride that you feel for things like this. And it's not stupid at all. But like I remember, I was kind of like zoning out because she was playing Mario Kart. And it came on the screen, and I saw the gold trophy. I'm like, how? How did you do this? And this was not Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This was not with the steering assist on. This was the Wii U version. So explain, how did this happen with Smash?
Well, in Smash, to announce what the next episode is, I always have the trophies drop in, and that does literally mean I have to beat the game with those 2 characters. And so my daughter always plays with me, and I hold her hand through the game, and we win on a low difficulty setting. And then after we were done, she's like, Dad, I think I'm ready to play by myself. And I'm like,
I love it.
You mean pick your own guy? She goes, yeah, and I don't really need you to play with me. Thank you, though.
Oh, man, that's harsh.
I'm like, okay, all right, you can play. And she picks Palutena. and she sets it to 2.1 difficulty. So she didn't even go all the way down to the 0.
Yeah.
And she plays through the whole game. I'm kind of like walking in and out of the room. Then all of a sudden I hear, she goes, "Dad, I beat Master Hand." I'm like, "What?"
How?
I come running in, and sure enough, she does it. I said, "Jishing, run in front of the TV right now. I'm snapping a picture of this." And so I snapped the pictures as fast as I could, and I couldn't upload it fast enough. I even spelled Palutena's name wrong. I was so excited to get it out there. But I don't know how she did it. And then she played it again. She beat it with another character. And
Yeah.
So I'm really proud. I feel like I'm winning as a dad because my kid is playing Smash.
They grow up too fast.
I asked her earlier today. She goes, "Dad, Smash Brothers is my favorite game." I said, "What about Breath of the Wild?" She says, "I really love Breath of the Wild. Smash Brothers is my favorite." And I'm like, "Wow,
That's
you're
your
a
daughter."
pretty amazing kid.
I haven't introduced that to at least that level to my daughter yet. I think it might be time. She's getting into Splatoon. She just likes watching it right now. She always wants to play it. So I think once Splatoon 2 comes out, she's going to be kind of stuck in that world. But I think it might be time to try to get her into Smash Brothers. So, and at some point, we'll have to get them together and they can settle it in Smash.
Oh, they would love that. And that is, I think, one of the greatest appeals about Nintendo, was we're talking about these games that we enjoy as full-grown adults, and our kids are able to play them competitively and even play them cooperatively with us, and it's still fun. That you can do that you have, like, she can mash buttons on it, and it doesn't deter me. I'm still able to progress and do what I want to do, and I just marvel at the ingenuity that it took to assemble a game like that.
Yeah. I can't wait for that to happen. It's coming soon. It's gonna happen. We'll do it live on a newscast.
Oh, I love that idea.
So speaking of the 2DS, I think I'm going to start getting in trouble when we start seeing limited edition 2DSs coming over to the States. I do want to briefly touch on this, and hopefully you guys can still hear me. This is the Dragon Quest limited edition Silver Slime or Metallic Slime 2DS XL. And when I saw this thing, I wasn't expecting to see limited editions this quickly. Part of me thought that, Nintendo's going to dial back on this with the 2DS. They're not going to go so hardcore with like the limited editions and like the constant releases of colors because they want to push people towards the Switch. And less than, an hour after they announced the 2DS, they announced this. So I was dead wrong. As always, my track record still is at a perfect 0. So I'm very happy about that. But what is your thoughts on these 2DS limited editions, and what is your hope? What do you want to see?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I could see why you would think that, because they're wanting to push all of the attention and the focus on the Switch. This was a good time to announce the 2DS because if you wanted to buy a Switch right now, you can't. I'm sure that they will be flooding the market with them again soon, but people aren't going to be frustrated by this announcement of more consoles in a space where you are able to actually go out and buy the console that they are promoting. And it's really insensitive to heavily promote a console that you can't buy. So if they were to put all that attention on the Switch, people would just get irritated. And so this has kind of been their MO for a while now, with the Monster Hunter limited edition and then obviously that Majora's Mask one that we talked about. I think it is a little bit interesting that it's this one and not a Nintendo property, but I guess this is something we're just going to continue to see. This to me looks like something that you get in Japan. It seems like the kind of thing that is popular in Japan, but that doesn't always make it over stateside. Yeah, I think though it portends a lot of limited editions coming out in the future. It wouldn't surprise me that as Black Friday rolls around, we might see 2 or 3 different limited edition versions pop up here and there. I'm probably going to buy one of the standard colors as soon as it releases and then hope that a Zelda one doesn't come out, because when it does, I will buy that one.
It's going to. It's going to happen. There's one thing I wanted to point out. I'm going to just put this back on the screen here for just 1 second. One thing about this that I have yet to see on any kind of limited edition console is the slime sticks out. Like it's not flat. It's a bubble.
Are you for sure on that? Because I've been wondering about that looking at it.
Hang on 1 second. I'm going to head over. There's a site, NintendoWire.com, I think.
I love that website.
What? Yeah, it's Yeah, they do some interesting things. But let me load a picture up here really quick. This is just going to take a second to do, and you can get a better look at the kind of, yeah, here we go. This one's going to be perfect. So my desktop is right now flooded with way too much images and stuff like that. So here we go. Here it is. Putting it up now. So here is.
Yeah. That is surprising to me, because that's not just a different paint job. That's a different mold. Like they had to go out of their way to custom create that. That actually makes this exclusive a lot cooler to me.
I am, like I said, I'm surprised we're seeing this kind of variety with the Switch out right now. However, this limited edition really got me excited. I was hoping that Nintendo would have said, you know what, screw it. We're going to release an update, starting with the 2DS XL, and we're going to get rid of, region locking, because I would have imported this thing in a heartbeat. I think it's one of the most unique consoles they've ever put out.
Have they ever done this before? Is this the first time that, the variations have been a thing since the beginning, but have they ever done one that actually has a different shape?
I don't think I've ever seen it. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this one before. Anybody in the comments, if you know if Nintendo has done something like this, let us know. The closest I think they've ever done was on the 3DS. They had a Metal Gear Solid 3 limited edition that was snakeskin. And it was only available in Japan, but it had like this textured snakeskin feel to it. I think that's the absolute closest Nintendo's ever come to putting out something like this.
It's cool. I'll give them that. If they wanted to continue to go that route where they're creating such unique things, where it's not just they gave it a different finish, but they actually took the time to create a different shell shape, I might be more willing to double down on a few more. Even my kids might have 2 or 3 of them if it comes to that.
I'm crossing my fingers we're going to see this over here. A lot of this, like the Dragon Quest stuff, I feel like is never going to make its way over here. I do think it's up on Play Asia right now if you want to import it, but I thought it was like $280 to import it. And that is going to be out of my price range for something that I can only play Japanese games on. So I was tempted. I was super tempted, but it's not going to happen. So to end our little segment on the 2DS, it's getting your, thumbs up of approval.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to fit into the market in the grand scheme, but I think it's great that alongside with the Switch, Nintendo's going to be able to have a budget option that you can get to appeal to people who maybe don't want to go full in on the Switch, who want to have access to an enormous library of games, or who have young kids who aren't quite ready for the responsibility of the Switch.
There you go. I think the same thing. I'm excited for it, and like I said, my daughter's getting to this age right now where I think this might be a good segue in getting of her getting her own console. I don't think she's quite there yet, but it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. But let's move on to our next subject. I do want to talk a little bit about E3 because Nintendo has released their E3 plans for this year. But before we do, I'm gonna do a little bit of a shameless plug. You guys might know of a little hashtag that was going around for a while called Nugs for Carter. Are you familiar with Nugs for Carter?
I've never heard of that before.
All right. If anybody here in chats is familiar with Nugs for Carter, Carter was a guy on Twitter that put out a message to Wendy's and said, "Yo, Wendy's, how many retweets for a year of free chicken nuggets?" And Wendy's responded, I think 12 million. And he said, "Consider it done." And the world went crazy. It was on Ellen. It was all over the internet, and he broke the retweet record. He broke the retweet record, the all-time retweet record. He did not hit it. I think he hit 3 million retweets, which is still pretty darn good. So that got me thinking. Maybe we could do something similar. So today I started my petition to bring a new Metroid to E3 2017. Yo, Nintendo America, how many retweets for a new Metroid title? Now, I did not specify Metroid Prime. If you remember our last newscast, our friend TJ said he would like to see maybe the Prime series retired and then maybe a reimagining. I still like the idea of whatever Metroid game they come out with, it being first person. But I'm beginning to be a little bit more in your wheelhouse with Prime was great, but maybe it's time to completely reimagine the story. Maybe it's time to come up with something brand new. But, if Nintendo does, take the bait, with this tweet, which I don't know if they will. It's up to 411 retweets right now. I tweeted this out about 30 minutes before we started recording.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not too shabby. It's not too shabby. But if Nintendo does take the bait, my guess is they're going to do Metroid Prime Federation Force 2. If I had to guess, like I feel like that's what they would end up doing with this particular thing.
Well, it would probably be a Switch port of Metroid Prime Federation Force.
Yes, which I think everybody has been asking for since day one.
Oh yeah, that's on my list.
But shameless plug, if you guys want to help me in my Twitter mission, you can head over to my Twitter account @AmiiboJason and tweet this and spread the hashtag Metroid for Jason. That Happily Candy helped me tweet out earlier today, because we need a little bit of Metroid in our life for E3, and I want my track record to go up just a little bit, because my prediction is we're going to see Metroid at E3 this year. It's my hope. It's my mission to make it happen.
Now, and do you get partial credit if it is Metroid Prime Federation Force 2?
You know, I hope I don't. I hope to God that I'm not associated with that, if that's what happens. Even though I'm in the minority where I didn't think that game was all that bad. Blast Ball was great. I had a blast with Blast Ball.
So far, I think that Nintendo's E3 announcement is exciting. It's exactly what I think they need to do, and it's exactly what I expected them to do. As I mentioned in the newscast, obviously Mario Odyssey is their big title. There's no surprise there, and ARMS and Splatoon are like right there. So you want to build on that momentum, but I still think that Metroid fans are going to be disappointed again. I hope I'm wrong. And maybe you will single-handedly, nugs for Jason. We need to get that Metroid thing retweeted. If Nintendo can feel like it has a built-in audience, then it becomes worth it to start investing dollars in development. And that's the biggest problem, is the game, while critically acclaimed and very often loved by its fans, it just doesn't sell copies. And when you have a game that doesn't sell,
oh, come on, man. Come on. It would sell. Okay. If they came out with a new Metroid first person, like if they reimagined the franchise, Nintendo has been lacking a good first person shooter for a while. I honestly love the Wii motion control version of Metroid. I know a lot of people didn't. I thought it felt great. But we are beyond the motion era. We are beyond the single stick first person shooter. Now, Nintendo has a piece of hardware that can do some amazing things, and I think that if they put it to good use, they reimagine the Metroid franchise, that it could be fantastic. It could rival Halo. Okay,
I think it'll kill Halo. Halo is already derivative of Metroid, in my opinion. Like, Halo is building upon what Metroid has already proved people like to play.
Yeah.
It reached an audience that Metroid, I don't believe, ever did. Like, people love Metroid, but they never sold in the numbers that Halo has sold. And so it's not that I don't think they're going to make a great game, and I don't think it's not that people are interested. I just think, if I'm remembering correctly, the Metroid Prime games, even though they were very well received globally, it's hard to justify putting your dollars there when they don't make near as much as a Mario or near as much as a Zelda.
I totally get that. However, they're making,
yo Nintendo, how many tweets for a new Metroid title?
They're making a Rabbids game. They're making a Rabbids game for the Switch, okay? The game that nobody asked for ever.
That's
never,
true,
ever.
Okay, I'll grant you that, but you also you have to recognize, as I'm sure you do, that just like Nintendo needs to sometimes massage their retail partners and throw them a bone to show that they're still invested in that partnership, sometimes Nintendo has to massage their Ubies.
They're Ubies.
Ubisoft.
They're Ubies. I like that.
Has been one of Nintendo's better supporters over the past generation. They might have jumped ship with the Wii U, but I don't think anybody blames them. They were right there on the front lines, Nintendo's strongest supporter. And so for Nintendo to be like, yeah, you guys did us a solid. We want to help you sell your Rabbids game. Let's put a Mario skin on it. That's the only thing that might get me to buy it. I look at those Rabbids and I don't even register it. I don't even know what it is. But yeah, you put Mario on there, I'm like, hey, I know what that is.
They are the minions of the video game world. And I know we said that last time, but I still can't get over how much I hate those guys. But there you have it. That's my shameless plug to help us get a new Metroid title at E3 2017, so I don't have a completely terrible track record. So make it happen, folks. Happily Candied in chat has put a link to that tweet, so if you want to help us spread the word, that's the way to do it. Let's move on to E3 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back. TJ, you got so bored. You got so bored waiting. You had to bust out your Wii U.
I just found like 5 Koroks in the amount of time it took for us to get back up and running.
5 Koroks already. Good for you. I'm incredibly happy you found it. I ran into an issue where we had to kill Photoshop entirely to get this to work. We are streaming this at an incredibly high bit rate at 1080p. And on top of that, I have other things running with Skype. So my CPU decided to take a major dump at that very moment. But
so what you're saying is your computer cannot handle my bits.
There it is. Bada bing. Okay. So Nintendo has announced the E3 2017 9 a.m. Pacific time. And it's only going to be focusing on Nintendo Switch titles that are coming out in 2017. So we are not going to see anything beyond that, nothing in 2018. We're not going to see any 3DS titles in this presentation either, which is a cool move, in my opinion, because we're going to get things that are in the immediate future. So what is your thought on focusing solely on the Switch? The 3DS is kind of getting the boot on this one.
Well, I love it because I think that by focusing only on what we're going to be able to get this year, they're going to avoid what happened when they first announced Zelda for the Wii U. And then all the conversation was always, when are we going to get this? When are we going to get this? And it kept putting Nintendo on the defense, where they needed to constantly defend their decision to delay the game. Where this way, they're only going to talk about things that we're going to be able to get our hands on really soon. Yeah. And that's exciting. So you're not going to have to wait that long. And that way you can really ride that hype train all the way up to release. I'm with them. I think that's a really smart way to go.
So let me ask you this. So we know there's a handful of games that are coming out in 2017. Supposedly we're still getting Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I can't wrap my head around, that we haven't seen anything besides like the first trailer, and this is somehow still going to be a 2017 game. My money is on this getting delayed, but again, my track record, not so great. You never know. But we have that. We have Super Mario Odyssey. We have the potential for Smash Brothers, which I think is pretty much a given.
That's the one piece that I would love to see, and I don't mind them not being completely transparent up front, because they already announced all of the things that we're expecting. So they've confirmed our expectations. Nobody was not expecting to see Mario, and to have some sort of playable Mario is encouraging. And then also by having the tournaments with Splatoon and ARMS, I think they achieved 2 really smart things here. One is they already know people love playing Splatoon. Splatoon has made its way into the tournament circuit, and people get excited about this. So now we have a new and evolving E3 environment where it's not just the press. We've got players and fans coming, and this is something that they can get energized about, and that they can go and plan on doing it. And it's something like we talked about last time, there's really nothing at E3 to do. Well, now Nintendo has said, we're giving you something to do. And the cool thing about that is ARMS is something that's an unproven entity. You've played it, I've played it, but not a whole lot of people have had the chance to get hands on. And this is really a great way to create an event where people are already there. And so you're not going out of your way to play ARMS, but it's a way for you to have the opportunity to do it and to fall in love with it and to experience it in a place that you already are. And I'm really down with that. I think they made the right move. And the digital event is something that I've always been a big fan of, and I can see the appeal, because it's not as risky. Live events are risky. If you've seen Apple events where they're trying to get their phones to connect to show off certain features and it's not connecting, that's not selling projects. That's creating internet memes. And when it goes off without a hitch, it's fantastic. But otherwise, you're kind of like a laughingstock. And the other thing is, because Nintendo is not an American-based company, and this is something that is going to different things are going to appeal to different territories. The digital event is a great way to custom suit it to the territory that you're in and kind of create that appeal. So I'm absolutely with it. And this is the most excited I've been about an E3 in a while.
So how do you feel about, there's one tidbit of information that Nintendo released on the press site, and this wasn't something that was in the initial announcement, but they said that the Super Mario Odyssey demo that's going to be up is going to be a sandbox experience, which for a Mario game, Mario and sandbox don't really go like hand in hand. Platformers are kind of the furthest thing away from like a full-fledged sandbox experience. So I'm curious to see your thoughts on the sandbox like comment. What does that mean? I think that Super Mario Odyssey is going to be the biggest Mario like world that we've ever seen. But I'm curious like your thoughts on sandbox.
What it makes me think of is Super Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine, which are games that gave me very much that sandboxy feel. Like you get dropped into this world and there are a lot of different ways that you can interact with your environment, and there are clear objectives that you can follow, or you can just mess around. I feel like last year at E3, when the only thing that Nintendo featured was Breath of the Wild, that was a sandbox demo, but they didn't promote it that way. And that's why I felt like I walked away, as has been famously all over the internet. I was disappointed with it because I had the wrong expectation. I thought I was going to get to play Zelda, but it was a physics demo. If they would have said you're going to play in this Zelda sandbox, I would have approached it differently, and I would have thought, okay, let's get a feel for how Link moves. I'm not going to look for anything. I'm not going to try to solve anything. I'm not going to get in a quest. And so I'm kind of attaching my own personal experience to my expectation for this, where I think they're going to drop you into a world where you can just play with Mario's physics. There's really not going to be a lot that you can do to advance the story. You're not going to be completing levels. I think that you're going to have an environment that you can interact with. You can climb on stuff. You can jump off of stuff. You can look at this different world, try out the camera features, try out whatever peculiar and unique Wii-style remote controls. You're going to learn how the controllers interface with the game, but you're not going to be getting story elements. So I think that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I was thinking the same thing. I thought it was going to be more of like Yooka-Laylee recently came out with like a sandbox demo that people could play in. They could experiment with things, like you said, with the physics. So I wouldn't be shocked if we're going to see something similar to that. I'm hoping that they do something similar like a couple years back. Nintendo partnered with Best Buy where people could play like Super Smash Brothers before it came out at Best Buy. It would be cool if they did something similar to that, or if they just released like a timed demo so people at home could play it. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with Mario Odyssey. My only ask for Nintendo at this point is please, please, please give us a Mario Odyssey line of amiibo, or at least a Mario Odyssey amiibo. I would love that. I'd love to add that to the collection.
You want white tux Bowser?
I would take that in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
Wedding dress Princess Peach, I know that Lauren would be all over in a heartbeat. So I think there's a lot of other things that we can talk about with E3 as well. So besides that event, we have the Treehouse event, which I think everybody already kind of expected was going to happen. And that's going to happen immediately after the Spotlight event, so the main event. That's going to cover 3DS. That's going to cover Nintendo Switch. And they're going to be talking with developers and playing games as well. So I think we're going to get a lot of new information from that too, because we know the Nintendo Switch isn't dead yet. There's a decent amount of, or not the Switch, excuse me, the 3DS isn't dead yet. We have a decent amount of stuff coming out for the 3DS still this year. We have Fire Emblem Warriors, which we haven't really seen a lot about recently.
And is that the first game that's going to have dual release on the Switch and the 3DS?
I think so.
I wonder if we're going to be seeing more of that. Is that a sign of things to come?
I know they're doing something similar with Dragon Warrior, and that's going to be in Japan. There's going to be a 3DS and a Switch version, but I don't think they're coming out at the same time. It would be cool.
I both love and hate that. What I love about it is that it allows you to experience the game in two different systems, but what I hate about it is if you want it on both, you have to buy it twice.
Yeah. That's how they get you.
That kind of bugs me. I'll buy Hyrule Warriors every single time they release it. I bought that game 3 times already, and all of the DLC. So what I want to be able to do is to buy a 3DS game and play it on the Switch if I want to. I understand that can't always work because some games are very dependent on the 2-screen interface, but it would be nice to play some of those 3DS titles on the big screen if I wanted to.
Yeah, I'm still excited for a few things. I still love my 3DS. I still love the portability of it because the Switch is great for the most. I took the Switch to the gym for the first time today, and I was playing Mario Kart on the elliptical, which I looked like a goon, but it felt great. But it doesn't have like that ease of portability where I can just, put it in my pocket. So I like the idea that we're getting Fire Emblem Warriors on the 3DS. I love the idea of Ever Oasis. Ever Oasis looks outstanding. We have Miitopia coming out. So the 3DS is in no way, shape, or form dead. So I'm really curious to see what we're going to see from the Treehouse this year. And then I'm hoping that we can also go to the Treehouse live and make, asses of ourselves so we can try to get on camera. So.
Yeah, it's always it's always a strange environment with the Treehouse, how much press access you're going to have, because sometimes it's invitation only, and sometimes they'll let you stand in line and wait your turn. So yeah. I'm curious to see how much they're like. No one's ever going to turn down the legendary Royal Majesty King of Amiibo Jason.
Oh, they do every year.
Reggie ate your cookies though. Like this is
he did. He ate the cookies.
This is your time.
But will he retweet? Will he retweet my Metroid petition? That's the thing. That's the thing that's going to decide if they love me or not. So we also know, besides that, we have the live tournaments. You already kind of touched on those. We have no idea how people can enter those at the moment, but Nintendo said they were going to release more information as we get closer to the event. So that is Nintendo's E3.
Do you think there's a chance that you might have to pre-qualify by performing a certain level of aptitude, kind of like how they did with the Mario Maker tournament?
With Nintendo World Championships? Yeah, and that's actually funny. Lauren, Happily Candied, and I went to that. We went to the qualifiers for the Nintendo World Championships in Chicago, and we failed miserably. It was terrible. It was pretty insane, like the level of knowledge that people have on a lot of those old games. But a game like ARMS, I feel like everybody's going to be in the same boat.
That's true.
Because nobody has really had a lot of hands-on time with it. ARMS on time with it. Haha. So I'm excited to see if they are going to do that, how they're going to operate that. Is it going to be something similar like the Global Test Fire? Are they going to release like a timed demo where people could actually enter that way? I think that would be a cool way to do it. They could partner with Best Buy again, but Nintendo has the infrastructure if they want to just release a demo, make it timed, say for the next, hour, you guys can play ARMS and find out who the best players are and bring them to E3.
If they do something like that, I think that that's extending the mileage of E3 well beyond the scope of a single show. Because then they're having that build up to it, and they're having events that are as important as the event itself. And they'll stay in the news cycle for a long time. That would be really smart if they could figure out some way to implement that.
Yeah, I'm really curious because I still think Nintendo has some nice big surprises up their sleeve for this E3. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. I think the biggest thing we're going to see, and we mentioned this last week as well, is Smash Brothers on Switch, and I also believe we're going to see the Player 2 Amiibo line completely unveiled. Female Robin, USA Mario, whatever you want, whatever options that you'd want. So I think Nintendo is going to put on a good show. They always do. But that's going to wrap up the E3 coverage. That also wraps up the majority of the newscast this evening. We do have a few questions that people asked, so we're going to get into that real quick. We have like 4 or 5 questions that we can go through real quick, okay?
Sure.
All right. This first one comes from our friend TJ Harris. You know TJ Harris.
Power TJ.
The other TJ. One of the best video game players I've ever met in my entire life, and the winner of the Wii Summer Games. I think that was back in, I can't even remember what year it was, but he's got one of the coolest trophies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
he asked,
TJ stole that thing.
Did he?
He did.
I'll buy it from him. He asks if Nintendo could make one game based off of a movie, what would it be? And why?
Oh, man. Oh, that's a tough one for me to pull off the top of my head. Do you have a stock answer?
Do I have a stock answer? There's a lot of really interesting movies. I mean, they're already doing Detective Pikachu. We know that's coming up. They've already done Mario Brothers, and we know how well that went. So it's hard to say. I don't want to see a Zelda.
A video game based on a movie, or a movie based on a video game?
Oh, hang on. A game based off of a movie. So, okay. So I misread that. I read it the opposite way. So a game based off of a movie.
Oh, you know what I would like to see? Now, they've sort of given this to me in a few ways already, but I was blown away when I saw Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
I just watched that entire movie like this. And there are a lot of notes from that are in Twilight Princess, and there's a lot of notes from that are in Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah, like Koroks.
Right.
Completely are like those forest spirits.
Right, Wind Waker too. So if they were to adapt that into a movie, or adapt that movie into a video game, it's very easy for me to see how they can make that something that I would never want to stop playing.
Yeah.
Especially if it had, it's pretty clear that the Miyazaki films have inspired at least Aonuma quite a bit, and seeing the ways that that's shaped some of the music and the characters in the Zelda series has been fantastic for me because I'm a fan of both.
Yeah.
And I really think that they could if they could somehow take that movie. To me, the video games are the most heightened level of entertainment, because where a movie you can watch it and it can move you emotionally, but you're not impacting it in any way. Whereas a video game, you can be moved emotionally, you can be invested in the story, the plot, the characters, but you are also impacting it directly. So if I could have that kind of experience that I had with Princess Mononoke, except I'm in it, oh man, that would be awesome.
I have a hard time with it because every major movie I've ever like loved and said I want a video game, when they do it, it's terrible. I remember like when The Matrix came out, I want a Matrix video game, and they released a few and they were all just very, very bad games. I guess if I were to pick one movie to be a video game, it would be the Super Mario Brothers movie, the video game. So I want that gritty realism, Nintendo Switch exclusive. That would be my answer.
You want those amiibo line too, where you've got like the toads that are these tall dinosaurs with the shrunken heads and stuff.
I want the Dennis Hopper as Bowser amiibo, if we can pull that off.
That's interesting. I want that as a Smash skin. You could change your Bowser to look like Dennis Hopper if you wanted to.
Yes, please. The modding community can get behind that. We got to get AK Shop gone to Chris on the line right now and see if they can whip up a Dennis Hopper Bowser amiibo for us.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Somebody asked, we have AJ2 Lip. I think I have that right. He said, should Mario Kart 8 Mario Kart 8 Deluxe get DLC? So it's not asking what we want to see. It's asking, should it get DLC? It's hard to say.
I think that instead of dedicating time and resources to adding DLC to Mario Kart 8, their time might be better spent making Mario Kart 9. I don't know that it's worth it for the Switch to get its own dedicated Mario Kart. Maybe it is, but with every iteration of Mario Kart, the game is transformed, usually for the better, although Double Dash was the height of Mario Karting, because you could take somebody who literally is horrible and has no ability whatsoever, throw them in the bucket seat, and have an awesome, awesome time.
Yeah.
So what I really want to see is to find a Mario Kart 9 that has a unique identity from Mario Kart 8, and I kind of want them to move that way. I think going back to Double Dash might be the right way to do that, especially with the way that they're branding the Switch as this unit where you can crack off the controller and give it to another person. If you could ride the same seat, that would be even better, because then you don't have split screen that you're dealing with. You can have two players on one device, and that would be super, super exciting. Create brand new courses. We don't need to add new courses to this one that we've already been playing for 5 years if you're a Nintendo fan. And it just seems like it distinguishes the game from the original version in too many ways, when Mario Kart 9 is still a pipe dream. Let's just move down. Warp on to number 9.
I feel like we are years away from 9.
We should be, because 8 just came out.
When you mentioned Double Dash, and I said this on a newscast probably about 2 years ago, when we first started doing newscasts, that Mario Kart 8 should have gotten some sort of Double Dash DLC. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for that to happen. I'm expecting DLC. I'm thinking we're going to see DLC for it at E3. I know some people are like, well, this is supposed to be the definitive version. It already has all the characters unlocked. But again, I think Nintendo knows that it has a hit with this. and they're going to release some sort of DLC. But if they did some sort of DLC with it, the biggest thing they could do would be completely change the mechanics of the game by adding double dash into it. So completely optional, like imagine like 50cc, 100cc, 150, 200, and then double dash, and completely change up the way you're playing. I think that they would sell a lot of DLC and a lot of copies if they did that. So double dash, as you mentioned, it's kind of the pinnacle. It has such a strong following even right now. So if they did go that route, I feel like they would fans would go nuts.
I agree with you, but I think if we do see more DLC, it'll definitely be battle courses or tracks. They're not going to change fundamentally the way that the game plays, because it does involve a level of programming that I don't think you can implement through DLC very easily. And that probably would be something that would be saved for a future iteration of the game. Although what you're describing is a game that I would want to play in a big way. I think it's probably better to just make it as a new one. But it would not surprise me at all if they did release more tracks. I just kind of would rather they not waste their resources and just continue to work on the other one. You're definitely right, though. It's years off, because they could still sell this one for 2 more years. So why even bother trying to rush out a Mario Kart when this one will keep them strong for the next couple years at the very least. And then as soon as that kind of dries up a little bit, bam, we've got another Mario Kart for you people. This is the Switch version.
Only time's going to tell on it. I'm excited. We are a month to the day away from E3. I cannot wait to see what Nintendo has in store for us. But that's going to wrap up the Q&A section. I do really quickly, before we give TJ a few moments to say where we can find him, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank the Nintendo Wire team that was in chat tonight. Thank you to Lauren Moosney. Thank you to Jen, who's outstanding new member of the Nintendo Wire family. I also wanted to thank our announcer, Jared Rutledge, who's also going to be attending E3 with us this year. Thank you for doing an amazing job announcing, and thank you to everybody who stuck with us even through our technical issue that we had tonight. The joys of doing a live newscast. But where can we find you besides on this very channel?
Yep, all my good stuff, as Jason said, is right here. You can binge watch it all right now. But if you want to follow me on social media, the best place is on Twitter. You can follow my customizing adventures at Custom Conquest. I've also been very much in the habit of putting all of my Nintendo Dad posts on that account. And then if you want to follow my characters, Hero TJ, you can find him at Smash Me TJ. And if you want to find Dark TJ, you can find him at Smash Me Dark TJ.
As always, he came out again. I still remember the first newscast he came on. He was out like the entire show.
I know. He pretty much just ran the show. Sometimes
he did. It
was a dark time. Amiibo were hard to find. He was frustrated with that, so.
They're still hard to find. We're back to those days. It's crazy.
Okay. I wasn't going to say this, but I have like 3 customs that I want to make that are contingent on an Ocarina of Time Link amiibo. So I just looked them up to see what, $90?
Yep.
That'll never happen. So I know people get excited about the hunt and they love it. It is like a customizer's nightmare. I want to be able to walk into a store and I never want to have to pay more than retail. I actually, because of my own discretionary spending restraints, I can't spend more than retail. And usually I have to search for sales. But like they've reached a point where it pretty much is eliminating custom projects. Yeah. So the hunt is not fun for me. It's like the worst thing. I want to type in a few letters and have it pop up on Amazon and have it in my house in a couple days. That's just not the reality of the world we live in right now.
For Christmas, I got Lauren's sister an Ocarina of Time Link, and I'm regretting it very much right now.
Did you want to keep it?
No, I went over to their house not too long ago, and I just saw it sitting there, like not with her, just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, I should pocket this thing. I should take it right now and give it a good home. But I can't do that. I can't do it. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Nintendo Newscast. If you're looking for more information on me, you can find me at my personal Twitter account and retweet the hashtag Metroid for Jason. At Amiibo Jason, you can find our other Twitter accounts at Amiibo News and at NinWire, or you can just search for Nintendo Wire and find us there. Our website is nintendowire.com. And again, thank you for everybody who joined us tonight. We're going to be back in a week with another new episode. Until then, we'll see you guys later.
Thanks for playing.
Bye, guys.